All right, everybody, we are here with the Kado Games podcast. The mics are hot, and we are talking about Star Wars Unlimited. I am here with Kevin from Roll On Gaming. How are you doing today?
Can't be better. How are you?
Man, I am super excited to talk about the first half of the Jump To Lightspeed previews and spoilers and whatnot. And just so everybody knows, we're recording this late January, early February. So we're going to talk about half of the things that are revealed by the time this comes out. So that way we're not here for 6 hours talking about all these really cool cards. But Kevin, why don't you tell all of the listeners who you are, what kind of content you do, and where people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am part of a podcast called Roll On Gaming. Me and my brother Corwin started doing some podcasting in the audio space during Star Wars Destiny. When that game went the way of the dodo bird, we did a bit of a hiatus. And then when Star Wars Unlimited was announced, it became, all hands on deck. Let's ramp this back up, but let's put it on YouTube. So we did a bunch of episodes on YouTube. I also am creating content for Deploy Your Leader Gaming, which is a website that does articles and also singles and accessory sales with my good friend Brian, who runs Deploy Your Leader. So I've written, I think, 18 articles about Star Wars Unlimited for them. So between the writing and the podcasting, pretty much all in on Star Wars Unlimited. It's been tricky to get on the video chats these days with life happening and the holidays and things like that. So bit of a lull on that end, but still excited about the game, still playing it as much as I can, and can't wait for set 4.
Yeah. What's your favorite color combination right now? What are you playing?
I've spent the most time since Star Wars Unlimited came out playing command villainy aggression. I did a lot of that with Darth Vader. I was fortunate enough to win a store showdown with command villainy, but it wasn't aggression. It was yellow. That was back when Boba Fett was legal. So pretty much command has always been there. The last 2 store showdowns that I was a part of, and the last PQ that I was a part of, all had command villainy in them at some level, whether it was aggression or cunning or vigilance. Generally speaking, if it's villainy, it's all right by me. I tend to pay more attention to those leaders, characters, upgrades, events, etc. And so I spend more time on them and therefore understand them a bit better.
Okay. What's your deck style of choice? Are you like aggro, mid-range, control? What do you enjoy in Star Wars Unlimited?
It's a funny thing you should ask that, because I've spent a lot of time sort of soul searching, trying to figure that out myself. And I still haven't really come up with an answer, because I like to do a lot of things in Star Wars Unlimited that I can't really just nail down one. Like, on one hand, I like to, when something that's pretty well known about me is my love for Darth Maul. And so when the Darth Maul leader was spoiled, I was very, very excited by the opportunity to overwhelm units, because not only was it maintaining a board presence, but also having effective trades and dealing damage past just eliminating units. So I was really in favor of that. So that leaned a little bit more into the aggro sphere, but I also, the OCD side of me likes having a clean board on my opponent's side, which sort of tilts in the favor of control. And then, again, when I had some success with Boba Fett, that's that cunning aspect has a little bit more of a tricks, a little bit more mid-range. You can do one or the other. So I haven't really been able to nail down my play style. I guess my play style currently is whatever I find the most joy in playing, whether that's good or bad. Again, as we know, the Maul leader hasn't been super successful in the competitive sphere, but that didn't stop me from making 50 plus versions of the deck and doing my best to try to figure out the best way to pair it and make it successful. So I'm sure that'll change at some point. I'm sure I'll get a hold on, what it is I like to do more. But in the meantime, the thing that I like the most about Star Wars Unlimited is that the game really is a test of skill in a lot of facets, more than a test of RNG. You know, you have card draw and you have your opponent's card draw and things like that. But with Star Wars Destiny, my biggest frustration was always the die rolls, because that added that extra level that you just couldn't prepare for. With Star Wars Unlimited, I feel like, you know, any deck, with some exceptions, can really compete if you have enough preparation. And that really motivates you to sort of stay locked in and try to figure out what you like. And because at the end of the day, it's a card game. You know, it's important to do what you like and, you know, have fun with the things that you care about.
Okay. What decks do you feel like just can't make the top cut right now?
Of the ones that we have from previous sets, you know, I don't think we're ever going to see. Well, ever is a strong word, because again, I'm a hopeful person when it comes to card games, and I think that's more me tying in my love for Star Wars more than it is me being practical. So I think Jyn Erso leader is going to have a tough time. I think IG88 is going to have a tough time.
Poor IG.
You know, yeah, poor IG. You know, I think, yeah, and the one that honestly like really upsets me because I want it to be good. I'm not even a particularly big fan of the character. I just like the design. Is Moff Gideon? I really think Moff Gideon has something to him with the ability to give characters overwhelm, and you know, to buff up your 3 cost or less units. You know, there's something there. It's just for whatever reason, no combination that I've found has worked. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. And again, that's probably because I'm not as much of a Moff Gideon stan as some others. But I haven't seen anything work with him, and it's disappointing. It's disappointing.
Maybe there's something in a future set that'll bring Moff Gideon back to the conversation table.
Yeah, you would hope so.
The design space for Star Wars Unlimited does actually feel pretty unlimited. Like it's just impressive. Like there's so much space for so many different archetypes. It's not shoehorned into one specific deck is just going to be hyper dominant. Minus obviously Boba Fett now that he's gone, because that deck was pretty dominant.
Well, but it's interesting that you bring up Boba Fett, because when you're talking about the design space and you're talking about it being unlimited, yes, Boba Fett 1, the Spark of Rebellion leader, is currently not premier legal because it's been suspended. However, from a design standpoint, we have now seen 3 Boba Fett leaders do 3 drastically different things in 3 drastically different aspects. So
Yes.
if you're a Boba Fett fan, right? If you're a fan of just the character, you can find a way to utilize Boba Fett in these other different ways. And we're seeing that with Han Solo. We're seeing that now with Grand Admiral Thrawn, Asajj Ventress, you know, all these leaders that are, and not even just leaders, and units that are going to have these multiple versions that are indicative of a period of time in their character arc, that you can now just have a blast with whatever the characters that you like, and you know, maybe just tailor your play style to that style of deck, rather than having to just, you know, in previous games, I think you would just say, oh, here's Boba Fett. He's an underworld character. That means he's always going to be yellow, no matter what.
Right.
And like, that's not the case in Star Wars Unlimited, which is great.
Yeah, it's really nice to see how early on in the development phase, like during Gen Con and when they were promoting the game, a lot of the heads of the departments were saying they were looking to take snapshots from films and translate it into the card. And that gives them so much flexibility, because you can see Boba Fett's a great example. Different scenes, different moments in the history of Star Wars, and that translates to different colors, different play styles, different abilities. And it's not shoehorned in, and that's really nice, because it has been, but they've kind of unlocked the gates, and now we're seeing so much design space open up, and that's why Star Wars Unlimited is such a good game.
Sure. And then on the flip side, right, if let's say for the sake of argument, you weren't a fan of the last Lando Calrissian leader, the one that came out in Shadows of the Galaxy, well, guess what? Now you have a new Lando Calrissian leader that you can mess with because you're a Lando fan. And now maybe there's something there that catches your eye in a different color, in a different playstyle, with a different deploy cost and a different ability and different health and different HP. And now you can expand what you're trying to do with that Lando that you're so wanting to play. So it's good on the positive side, but it's also good on the quote unquote negative side, because even if there's something that comes out with your favorite character that you don't like, you have the optimism and the expectation that somewhere down the line a better version is going to come around. Whereas in other games, maybe you get one of your favorite character every 3 years because there's so many other characters that need to get their shine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just nice to see FFG explore such a diversity in design space, because you're right. Older games, usually you would see Boba Fett kind of like chained to a specific, like Underworld. He's just trapped in yellow Underworld, and you'll never see him outside that color identity. You just don't. And that is not the case with Unlimited, and it's really fun because every time there's a new leader and a new color combination, you kind of get the gears rolling on deck building. Like, okay, so Lando's in blue. What are the tools in blue that can help push this deck to its limit? And then what's the auxiliary color we're going to throw in? What base are we going to use to offset this variant of a leader that I like?
Absolutely. And and again, it's not just leaders, right? In previous times in games, some Underworld might only be in one color. You might only find Underworld units in a specific faction, right? But now we have Underworld units in the entire rainbow of colors that are Star Wars Unlimited aspects. So no matter what aspect you choose to pair with your leader, if you're looking for an Underworld focus, if you're looking for a Rebel focus, if you're looking for an Imperial focus, there are pieces there that can allow you to achieve that, especially now that we're about to be 4 sets in. It may not have been that case with just set 1 or sets 1 and 2, but now you're starting to see, okay, they're going away from these themed sets. So now in set 4, at least so far, what it seems like is we're getting a little piece of everything. We're getting Imperials, we're getting Rebels, we're getting Underworld, we're getting pilots, which are brand new. We're getting Separatists, we're getting Resistance, we're getting First Order. It's not all just like one era, so that if you want to focus on that era, you have to tailor your deck only to the things that are present in that set. Now you can expand so much. And again, it really does make it unlimited.
Yeah. Did you ever play Magic the Gathering?
I played it a little bit when I was younger. I don't think I ever really understood it to the point where, I would be able to speak on it on a high level. But I am familiar with the game and its mechanics.
Were you around when they were doing block sets for releases? Do you remember that?
If I was, I don't think I would understand what a block set was. So there you go.
So essentially, the old design philosophy for Magic was we're going to have a block, which usually was 3 sets, and it would follow a specific theme. So you have the first block, which was the largest, which had the most cards to kind of establish the cornerstone. And then set 2 and 3 would enhance the block. So they would be smaller sets, but they usually have more mechanics. Whereas the first set was just kind of this jumble of cards to establish, like we're going to a fantasy realm or an elf realm or an animals realm, whatever. So translating that into Star Wars Unlimited, the first couple sets feel like they were kind of a themed block of, hey, we're going to have, cards primarily from episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, TV shows, whatever. And now this set is kind of this amalgamation of, okay, we're going to focus on a pilot and ship theme. And now we're going to bring in some of the greatest pilots and captains and ships from the entire IP. So it's not locked, like you're saying, to a specific time frame or a specific form of media. It's just the theme is ships and pilots. Right. Now, what are the coolest ships and pilots we can pull in? It's like, that is a great question.
Yeah, and they've already not only succeeded in teasing some of the ones that they're pulling in, but they've also doubled down as it relates to prestige variants, right? And I know, player versus collector that's going to be a tug of war that's time honored, and we don't necessarily have to get into that. But if you're going to be spending the time with an entire set highlighting iconic ships, what better way to do it than to release them in an iconic variant should players want to pursue that route? And literally, it's not a scenario where, okay, I got a prestige variant, but it's a first order stormtrooper, right? It's the most basic of basic things. No, these are all named ships, which ties in with the theme of the set and also makes it more recognizable and more desirable. So the lean is definitely there. And I appreciate the attention to detail there, not just being like, oh, we have 262 cards in this set. You can have a chance in your collector booster of one of 262 different prestige variants. No, it's 36 or 32, whatever the number is. And let's make it recognizable. Let's make it desirable. Let's make it look sick. So pretty excited about that. But I do see your point with the block sets. They teetered on the brink of that a little bit in Destiny. The first set of every rotation ended up being, the bigger set that introduced the core mechanic, and it had the starter sets and this, that, and the other thing. But here, I think they've done a really good job sort of balancing that dynamic.
So share your thoughts on that Carbonite booster that you were talking about with the prestige variants, because I love hearing people's thoughts on not only collector boosters, but limited edition collector sets, because FFG said once it's sold out, it's gone. We're never making them again. So there can be a sense of FOMO sometimes that pushes the market price on the product up. And usually competitive players don't necessarily care or need the exclusive variants of a card, because the 20-cent version does the same as the $400 full art prestige variant. So what's your perspective on these collector boosters?
So let me come at this from a bit of an explanatory perspective. I would consider myself a collector.
Okay.
What I would also consider myself is a completionist. So at its right, but not in the way that you're thinking. So at its base level, my goal every set is to have a playset of every card. That's bare minimum, right?
Do you care about the rarity or the hyperspace or foil, or just like base rarity?
Yeah, so I'm going to let you in on that a little bit. So when set 1 came out, I made it my mission to collect a master set. Now that wasn't going to include showcases because I'm not crazy. I have full respect and love and admiration for the people that add the showcases to their master set, because that's much more dedication and funding that I could ever possibly dream of. But set 1, I always knew, okay, this is going to be Rebels versus Imperials. This is going to be iconic stuff. I want one of every variant at minimum.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not doing that for future sets. One, because it's been a ridiculous chase, and I'm literally on the verge of completing it, and we're almost a year into the lifespan of Star Wars Unlimited. So
What's left?
Well, I'll tell you. As of the recording of this podcast, what's left is on the way to my house, and it's 4 cards. And of the 4 cards, you might expect them to be rares, legendaries, this, that, the other thing. But one of the ones that I've been missing for this entire lifespan of Star Wars Unlimited was a hyperspace foil Rebel Pathfinder. Now that's a common. That's a very common. Yeah. Believe it or not, with all the obscene amounts of Spark of Rebellion packs that I've opened in my life, never pulled a hyperfoil that thing, what I just said. Rebel Pathfinder, thank you. Okay. I don't know why I just decided to say Republic Commando, because it's definitely not that. So because of how long and how exhaustive and how expensive this search took, although I'm glad I waited for the reprint for some of the legendaries I was missing, I made the pact with myself that I'm never ever going to pursue a full variant set again. I mean, it's the Spark of Rebellion variant set without showcases is 944 unique cards. That's a lot. So
But you
with
did
that,
it.
but I've almost done it. But with
Congratulations. That's
well,
cool.
thank you very much. But with that said, the collector side of me is if I see a leader, a unit, a piece of card art that I, as a Star Wars fan, really like,
Hmm.
I want that card in its full set of variants. So,
Yeah.
I'll let's fast forward from set 1 to set 3. Um, Twilight of the Republic comes out. I need every kind of Darth Maul there is, right? So I have the 4 card playset of the Darth Maul legendary unit. I
Hmm.
have the 4 card playset of Unnatural Life, which features really cool Darth Maul art. Expanding on that one step further, one of my favorite things in all of Star Wars for my entire fandom since I was a little kid have been Star Destroyers. So throughout all 3 sets to this point, I have collected one of every variant of every Star Destroyer that was printed. Now
Okay.
that's Imperial Star Destroyers. That's also Republic Star Destroyers like Resolute and Tranquility. Because Venator Star Destroyers are amazing.
Hmm.
So you can imagine how much trouble I'm going to be in with all these capital ships that are coming in set 4.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that.
Yeah, JTL is going to bankrupt me, but don't tell my wife.
I
Um,
didn't see nothing.
didn't see nothing. Right.
I didn't see.
So that's sort of where the line is blurred for me between collector and like player slash completionist. Like I want at the base level, I want enough cards to be able to play the game the way I want to play it with a full play set of everything. But bits and pieces here, like I'll piecemeal pick off these units and cards that I just want to have the full play sets of because I'm so invested in them as a fan that I want them to look really cool when I play them.
Okay. So then let's pivot that amazing story because it's really cool to hear how collectors think and how they collect because everyone's unique.
Sure.
What are you going to do with carbonite packs since
Yeah.
a lot of the cards you want are going to be prestige variants?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So I've basically given up on the idea that I'm going to get a uh, serialized variant of anything. Now, if I'm pleasantly surprised, great, awesome, love that. That can certainly happen when you're, buying booster packs. But my goal is not to search, shoot for the highest of highs when it comes to these prestige variants.
Yeah.
Again, I think that we've been put in a position as a gaming community where we've realized that this Star Wars Unlimited team over at FFG knows what they're doing. And I don't say that to be a shill for the company. I'm not paid by them, whatever. But they've proven time and again that they listen to the community, that they make the necessary changes, that they're communicative and understanding of the business and all of that. So I say that to say that yes, the collector boosters will be limited, but I don't think that they're I'm going to say naive enough to print like 1,000 of them to go worldwide, right? I
oh
think
yeah, no.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think the print run is going to be large, and it's only going to be one print run, but it's going to be large because they're going to this is going to be a hot ticket item, at least in my opinion. Some other people don't see it that way, and that's great. Collect how you want. I'm not here to pass judgment, but I see it as a hot ticket item. And I know that if I'm driving to work and I happen to drive past a card shop, I may stop in and buy a couple collector boosters just to see what kind of prestige variant and hyperspaces I get. Now, in terms of the philosophy of the collector boosters, again, it's a premium product designed for premium collectors. I don't think that having this on the market devalues anything about the game as a whole, right? You can still for a relatively reasonable fee at this point in time field a deck of all of the cards you want that is not going to break the bank, and you don't have to have anything to do with these Carbonite boosters if you don't want to, right? Infamously, Sabine Wren. It has been one of the most popular decks throughout the entire history of Star Wars Unlimited. You can buy a Sabine Wren deck for like $100, right? And the most expensive cards in there are like the Wreckers or something. You know what I mean? So, which are like $4 cards. I don't even know what they are at this point in time. But if you're looking to be competitive, you can do that on a budget. If you're looking to play casually, you can do that on a budget. If you're looking to play not on a budget, all this does is give you an extra avenue in which to do that. And I don't think that's necessarily going to harm the community in any way. If it affects the prices and sort of the demand of regular booster boxes, that remains to be seen. But Twilight of the Republic, I think, was in a position where everybody got everything that they wanted. And now I think businesses are going to see, hey, there's plenty of product to go around. Let's purchase accordingly so that our player base gets everything they want and we're not saddled with 90 extra boxes sitting in a warehouse. So those lessons, I think, have been learned, which is why I have this, albeit uninformed confidence that the collector boosters are not going to hurt, and I think they're going to help, stores who invest in the collector boosters, because again, if the print run starts to dry up, that's going to be what people are hunting for, not booster boxes, not spotlight decks, etc., etc.
Okay, good points. I agree. Another topic that's just so universal, and since you are a collector and a player, I think you're an expert on this. Singles versus sealed. You are someone who's picked up singles to complete your master set, but you're also cracking boxes. A lot of people want to know which is the better of the two. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on, which ones you think are better, or if one's better for another, because there's so many different opinions and there's so much different experiences that there isn't a universal answer of cheeseburgers are better than tacos. There just isn't. But you can definitely talk about why singles are better and why sealed is better.
Sure. And I'm happy to. But first I'll tell you that tacos are better. That said, I don't I don't think that there is a wrong way to build your collection. If you want to buy booster boxes or buy single packs or do draft or do sealed and build your collection that way, great. Do it. That's what the packs are there for. If you aren't interested in gambling, or you're not interested in variance and RNG, and you just want to buy singles, great. But you have to understand on both fronts that there are positives and there are negatives. Let's start with buying booster boxes. The positives of buying booster boxes are a couple fold. Top end of this, right? Obviously, you get a great booster box that has 5 legendaries, including a hyperspace foil legendary of something that you really, really wanted. Let's say you buy a case. Top end positivity there. You get a playset of all the cards you're looking to have in your deck. Awesome. The booster box gives you a heightened chance, whether that's a normal booster box, a collector booster box, what have you. The booster boxes give you a heightened chance to get really cool things. And when a set is starting out, like when the set releases March 14th or whatever the day is, buying booster boxes is going and not, I'm talking about going to your local gaming store, purchasing them in person and bringing them home in hand. That is going to give you the fastest, best chance to fill out your collection en masse, right? And that's a positive for a lot of people, because at the end of the day, we all want to play with these cards now. The set's out. We've been dying for it for 3 months. Let's play it now. And the sooner I can get all the cards I want, the better. And the easiest way to do that is for me to buy enough booster boxes that are at least going to guarantee me as close to play sets of commons, uncommons, rares as I possibly can, and then maybe fill out some of the missing rares and legendaries later on and proxy the rest, or do whatever it is that you have to do. Those are the positives of buying booster boxes. The flip side of that is that if you have specific things that you want, you're definitely not guaranteed them, right? You could be absolutely jonesing over the new Devastator unit in set 4. That is a legendary unit. You could open 8 booster boxes and not pull a single Devastator. Now all of a sudden you have all these cards that you can build a deck with, but the deck that you really want to build does not it includes Devastator, and you don't have any of them. So there's a trade-off in terms of ceiling versus specificity. When you flip that over to buying singles, again, the positives there are you get everything you want exactly as you want. It's probably a lot more affordable than buying booster boxes. And you're able to play the game the most effective way you can play it because you're getting exactly the cards that you're looking for. You can buy a play set of commons, uncommons, and rares for probably about as much as you would pay for a booster box and a half. Very efficient, very effective. And then you just have to fill out legendaries from there, which can be a little tricky, but that sort of is what it is. The negative, I don't want to say the negative, but the flip side of that is, one, that's going to take time. So if March 14th rolls around and you're buying singles, you may not have your full play sets, which you ordered some of online, waited for some of your other friends to crack before you bought from them, hunted down the cards you needed elsewhere. You may not have your full play set until March 28th, April 1st, April 10th, right? So there's a patience level involved there that some people don't want to have because they want to go to their locals and they want to play constructed games to get ready for store showdowns, planetary qualifiers, regionals, sectors, galactics. They want to do that as soon as possible. The other flip side of it from a collector's standpoint is if you're buying singles, you're not paying $100 for a booster box to get a $500 showcase. If you want that showcase and it's $500, you're paying $500. Same with the collector boosters. If you want a serialized version of the IG 2000, right? What could be a great pull for you from a $25 pack instead may cost you $125, and you're paying that difference because you're getting it on demand. So I say all that to say that Star Wars Unlimited is great in the sense that it doesn't really provide those barriers to you not collecting how you want to. The market for base level cards is so friendly right now that players can rely on the singles market to build out their collections. Obviously hyperfoils, hyperspaces get a little bit more expensive, a little bit more lucrative, and then showcases and so on and so forth. But again, those are all fluff treatments. Those are all just shiny, pretty things that if you don't want shiny, pretty things and you just want to play the game, you're great. And then it also provides these booster boxes that, when they're done the correct way, and I know there was some controversy about how cards were stacked in previous sets. They seem to have fixed that completely. It provides you with a fair and reasonable way to fill out a collection in a quick method, if not the most efficient. I am a hybrid in the sense that I buy booster boxes because I'm supporting my local gaming stores, and two, I love how it feels at the beginning of a set to open a pack, not knowing what you're going to get, and see what you're getting, and then realize that you're adding it to your collection. I love that. Mm-hmm. As time goes on, I invest more in singles than I do in packs because I have most of the cards, and I know specifically what cards I need to fill out my play sets. But again, for sets 1 and 2, I didn't pull any showcases. Set 3 rolled around, I pulled a showcase. It was an amazing feeling, and I want that feeling. So I'm going to continue to buy boosters as long as I am able to at least chase, hey, that showcase could be in there. Hey, that foil prestige chimera could be sitting in that pack. Is it efficient? No, but it's what I enjoy doing, and that helps me, to to justify the expense on my end, because at the end of the day, we're paying for entertainment. And if you're entertained by the idea of opening a booster pack, then you should do it within reason.
What was the showcase you pulled?
So I actually pulled 2 in Twilight of the Republic, and I was very happy about it. They weren't, they didn't turn out to be the most lucrative showcases, but I pulled a Newt Gunray as my first ever showcase, and it was, oh, this is great. And then I also pulled a Wat Tambor. So the villainy separatist theme was very much on point. Those were lovely pieces of artwork, but they were happily sold to help finance the showcase that I really wanted, which was of course the Mall Leader. So now I have that, and that has gotten a ton of use.
Hey, there you go. Okay, super.
I mean,
cool.
I'm also talking to the king of showcases, because I am aware that the first ever public showcase for Star Wars Unlimited was opened by the host of this podcast. So I defer to your pack luck.
I can't remember who it was, but it was one of the higher ups in FFG, and after that, they're like, "So yeah, you're kind of screwed with this game." Like, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Pretty much.
But it feels so good, right? Like that dopamine hit of hitting a legendary or a hyperfoil or even a showcase. Like, you don't get that with singles. There's just no way to get that experience.
You know, it's almost like a reduced version of it. If you're not a dopamine addict like I am, apparently, going to the mailbox and seeing that you have a package from somewhere like TCG Player or eBay or wherever, you know, that's always really exciting, because you know that you've added to your collection, and once you crack it open, you can like officially put it in your binder or put it in your card storage and like be happy that it exists, or put it in your deck and make your deck that much better. So it's there, but it's there on a much smaller scale than the absolute adrenaline rush you get of seeing just that glint of foiling hiding behind the back of the cards.
Yeah, your adrenaline kicks in. You're like, what is it? What is it?
Right, exactly.
But I agree. I think you have a really good perspective on both singles and sealed. Just because there's a lot of people who want to lean into one of those two and then hammer out, this is the best. And if you don't agree with me, you're some kind of weirdo. It's like, that's not quite how this works. It's an open market, and people have the ability to do whatever they want.
I would say that some people are fortunate enough to be in a situation where, as long as they don't do anything that is detrimental to themselves or others, they can pursue their hobbies in any way that they choose. Right. So if you are not, choosing between your rent money and your boxes of Star Wars, if you are not choosing between food on the table and a carbonite booster, you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. But the game offers enough opportunities for everybody to eat. And, you can either eat with a fork or you can eat with a spoon, and either way you're eating. And I think that's great. And I think that there is, at least in my opinion, there's no one way to collect, because the point is collecting and having fun.
Yeah. That's all we're doing. Like you said, it's entertainment. Playing the game is fun. Collecting is fun. There's a bunch of people in lots of aspects. Star Wars Unlimited, Pokemon, Lorcana, Magic, sports cards. They just collect the things that look cool. They don't care about the game. They're just big fans of, Han Solo or Grand Admiral Thrawn, or in your case, you love capital ships. Like, cool. It's really fun because you get to tell stories, you get to show off your collection, and you could definitely tell, like, you are very passionate about what you collect, but you enjoy it. It's not like a chore. It's a love. That's good.
Yeah, and as someone who, and I'll tell you, when they canceled Star Wars Destiny, I mean, those were the dark ages, right? I jumped from hobby to hobby trying to figure out what I was into, and I figured out something about myself then. It was that I needed to be collecting something that I could also do something with, because for a while I was in sports cards.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and what I discovered about sports cards is that I would get really excited about, purchasing the ones I wanted, or opening. By the way, the pack opening experience in sports cards is horrific, and it's way worse than anything that I've ever experienced in opening cards for a Star Wars game, and I don't recommend it. But again, do you? Everybody
No,
can do.
you're not wrong.
Right.
It's pretty rough.
At least when I open a box of Star Wars, I know that I'm opening characters that I care about, and I'll just leave it at that. But what I discovered was that I'm having the dopamine hit of getting these cards that I want, and once I get them, they just sit there. They sit on a shelf, or they sit in a top loader in a drawer, and nothing happens to them afterwards. At least with Star Wars Unlimited, or previously Star Wars Destiny, or if players are playing Pokemon or Magic or One Piece or what have you, when you get the thing, you can also use the thing. And I think that's why I was so ready to jump back in with both feet when Star Wars Unlimited was announced.
Out of curiosity, what was your sports cards collection? Were you like basketball, football, baseball?
I solely focused on baseball. I am a lifelong San Diego Padres fan. And yes, I do live in the LA area, so I live in enemy territory, which is great.
No joke, you do.
Yeah. And so I focused my collection around the San Diego Padres players that I enjoyed. And
Okay.
and now they are just sitting there collecting dust. So if there are any Padres fans that are listening that want a great collection, just hit me up. You know where to find me.
We might know some people who can help you out, but Dodger dogs are tasty.
I urge you to take in a meal at Petco Park, and your opinions of Dodger Stadium cuisine will change drastically.
I'm okay with this. I'll go anywhere there's good food. I ain't got no shame.
Absolutely.
If you tell me where there's good food, I'm on the way.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I like the Dodgers because I'm from LA, but I'm not like diehard loyal. It's like, yeah, it was good times with hanging out with my dad, but
yeah, and we were getting along so well, you and I.
I know. But I'm willing to give it a shot. Like, I'm not against it at all.
Fair enough.
I do hate the traffic going to Dodger Stadium, though. It's horrid. Kill me now.
You could have stopped that sentence at traffic, and you still would have been right.
Yeah, LA traffic, no bueno. Okay, well, moving along to more positive things, Star Wars related. So okay, we've talked about singles, carbonite boosters, all these cool things. A question that's plaguing my mind.
Yes.
Are there any hero leaders or decks you are interested in playing? Because I know you're all in on villains, but anything on the hero side that might pique your interest and go, I'm interested in that thing or that deck or so on.
It's funny you should ask that. I dabbled a little bit with the very popular Anakin Blue deck that was out there, and I like it, and I think it's a good deck. And I don't have anything negative to say about the deck because it was a fun time. But as I was playing it, I just didn't really feel. I didn't feel the spark. I didn't feel the vibe. I didn't feel the. I didn't feel like I was playing my game. And that's really happened with every heroism leader that I've picked up. I'd say the one heroism leader that I really haven't explored to the length that I would like to yet, because it is intriguing to me, is Captain Rex.
Okay.
Yeah, I am a big fan of clone troopers as a whole. When I was in college, I would make sure that I get the $5 footlongs from Subway just so I had enough to go to like the local collectibles store and buy a new clone trooper action figure type thing.
Cool.
And so Captain Rex is a great character in the TV shows. His ability to generate clone trooper tokens is something that I feel like is really cool and something that can be messed with in a fun way. I don't particularly think he's that strong at the moment, which is why after some initial playtesting, I sort of pushed him off to the side. But I think the most fun I've had with a heroism deck in the 3 sets that we've had so far has been with Rex. So, maybe when we're a set or two in further and we get some more Republic synergies and things like that, I'll pick him up and give him another shot, and then we'll see what else we get when it comes to set 4, and what other heroism leaders are on the table there. But generally, I've spent so much time with the villainy stuff. I was doing that in Destiny as well, that the play style of being a villain just really speaks to me more.
And that's kind of the cool thing with leader-based trading card games is you can kind of set that tone for not only the game but your like personal experience. So like thinking of one of the big 3. Let's use Pokemon as an example.
Sure.
Normally Pokemon decks are pretty what's what I'm looking for? They're pretty much built around like an ecosystem of the type of energy you're using.
Yeah.
So Pokemon has a resource system called energy, and you attach a colored energy card to your Pokemon to pay for their attacks. So, for example, in Star Wars Unlimited, there's a color restriction based off your leader and your base, but the energy, the resources you use are not color coded. So you can have these 2 colors intermingled and your resources don't have any kind of restriction. In Pokemon, if you have 2 or 3 different colors, you have to have energy cards in your deck to pay for those costs. And if you miss the energy, you can't attack or do anything. So generally, Pokemon decks are colorless and 1 color, or maybe, God forbid, 2 colors, and you have special energies that can pay for that. But there's a lot of color restriction. What's interesting about Star Wars Unlimited is the color restriction is only realistically in the deck building, not in the casting or playing of the cards. And I really, really like that because you can just put whatever 2 colors you want in the deck, and you're never going to pull a blue card and go, oh, I can't pay for this. I don't have the blue mana, the blue resources to pay for this. You're never going to just have your jaw drop and go, well, I lose because I can't do anything this turn. Bummer.
Yeah, I think that the simplicity of the design in that way really contributes to being able to do more complex things with the cards in your deck. And again, it helps speak to being more of a skill-based game than it is an RNG game, like you mentioned with Pokemon. If you don't draw those water energies, you can't use Dugong's ability.
Nope.
That just is what it is. And here you don't have that problem. And I think, touching again on something you said about leader-based card games, this is my first. I never played when I was playing a little bit of Magic. I never played Commander. I never played One Piece. That whole thing. Mm-hmm. So coming from really the first game that I played competitively, which was Star Wars Destiny. Well, at least the first card game I played competitively. I dabbled a little bit in X-Wing, but that's not a card game. Coming from Destiny, where there's a very real possibility that your character could get sniped off the board before it does anything of value.
Yep.
To Star Wars Unlimited, where no matter what happens, your leader is guaranteed to have an impact on the game, even if it flips and is immediately removed. That is a card that's being used by your opponent that can't be used on another card in your deck later in the game.
Right.
And it's being done without any resource cost to you. It happens for free. It's almost like a 1 discard of one of their powerful removal spells. So, granted you don't want that to happen, but it still is like, okay, this isn't as much of a feel bad because my deck can still survive without this leader on the field. It can do it. So, and generally speaking, these leaders become, as soon as they hit the arena that they're in, they become the primary target. They become target number 1. So if you're getting 3-4 attacks off with your leader, that's a bonus. That you're doing something right. Because generally that doesn't happen. So
right.
The fact that no matter what happens, this leader that you're invested in personally or with respect to your deck building, is never just going to be completely shut out of a game. Unless you have a 7-drop leader and your opponent Sabine beats you in 5 rounds. Hopefully that doesn't happen. It feels much better because you know that your investment of time is going to pay off in some way.
Yes. And even if your leader does get nuked off the board, the passive side is still in play. So it's not like your leader is just gone, deleted. You now are playing with cards and no theme. Like the leader is always in play in some capacity, which feels so good. Because like you said in Destiny, you could come with, 2 characters and your opponent just blows one off the board and it's like, oh, well, yay, my now Yoda deck is doing nothing because my Qui-Gon Jinn is super dead. Thanks, game.
That's absolutely that happened to me more times than I can count, and so I'm very grateful for a system like this, and I've been enjoying it immensely throughout the first year of the game.
Oh yeah, I know this hurts a lot of Destiny players, but I'm okay with Destiny dying to trade up into Star Wars Unlimited because there's just so much Star Wars Destiny in the, like, you can feel it. You can feel that these are some of the things they wanted to do and just didn't have the ability or bandwidth to do it. And now Unlimited is just so much better. And don't get me wrong, I don't love the fact that Destiny died, but of the 2 games, I like Unlimited better if I had to pick.
It's there's no bitterness on my end at the cancellation of Star Wars Destiny because of 2 reasons. One, and other creators have said this, and I'm not going to be the first, and I won't be the last. But if you were to tell me that I would have 3 years of an amazing Star Wars game, meeting new people, interacting with the community, going to worlds, and just having a blast before the game died, I'd take that every day of the year and twice on Sunday. That's number 1. Number 2, Star Wars Destiny walked so Star Wars Unlimited could run. You said it perfectly, is that there is a lot of the Destiny ideal in Star Wars Unlimited, and we would not have as good of a game if not for the lessons learned from Star Wars Destiny. And, again, the action-to-action system, the way that some of these cards interact being very similar, and just building on, I don't want to say some of the failures, but some of the misgivings from that previous game and making them whole for this new game. You're absolutely right. It's a worthwhile sacrifice to be able to have Star Wars Unlimited and to have it be as good of a game as it is.
I also think, especially since you and I both played a lot of Destiny and a lot of Unlimited, I think Unlimited is a much better onboarding system for players, because if you told someone, here's a Star Wars trading card game with dice, you get this like side head cocked look like, what? Dice? Wait, hold on. So there's dice RNG and card RNG? It's like, yeah, a little bit. And Unlimited is just a standard trading card game. So if you're inundated into any kind of trading card game ecosystem, you can pick this up instantaneously. You know the casting cost on the top left. You know that 3/7 means 3 attacks, 7 health. Like you can pick up on so much of the templating without ever playing the game, and then you just learn about, okay, cool, there it's a you go I go action system, blah blah blah. It's easy to pick up, and it's so approachable.
Absolutely. I think one of the bigger selling points of Star Wars Destiny at the time was, but your local players are going to walk by the table and see these big dice and think, wow, that's really cool, I want to get into that. And they weren't wrong. Yeah. But seeing a hyper, I'll tell you a story actually. This is probably one of the cooler moments I've had in observing and being a part of any card game. I was at a weekly play during set 1 of Star Wars Unlimited, right? Spark of Rebellion meta. Nothing crazy. We were just playing some decks, and I was playing against my brother, and And as he was playing, a Lorcana player walked by and said, "Oh,
Okay.
what is this? What's going on?" And so, he starts watching over my brother's shoulder as we're playing the game. And a couple minutes go by, and my brother plays a foil Millennium Falcon piece of junk. And the look on this dude's eyes just completely changed. He was like, "Whoa, that's so cool. What is that?" And he sits down next to us, and we basically teach him the game as we're playing in 10 minutes. The game finishes. He gets up, goes down to the cashier, and buys a starter set of Star Wars Unlimited. Then, brings it back up. We teach him some more about the game. He leaves with us. He leaves the store with us once we're done playing. As he leaves, he decides to buy one booster pack, just one, of Spark of Rebellion. I would love to tell you he pulled a showcase. He didn't, but
Okay.
But he did open a legendary. He opened a Mace Windu, and it wasn't like a legendary of just like whatever. It was it's an iconic character in the Star Wars universe. So at that point, I just know this guy's hooked, right? And all it took was for him to see the Millennium Falcon hit the table to just be invested immediately. Yeah. And those are the kind of moments that are really cool in Star Wars Unlimited and what they provide. Because you could talk about the eye appeal of dice all you want, and it's not. I'm not here to say one way or another, but seeing iconic ships, characters, things in the Star Wars universe hit the table in whatever variant they are, and just go to town and do work on the game state. That's the selling point for the observer, and it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And stories like that just always reinvigorate my love for trading card games, because there's a million super cool stories. And the best part is, it's not like you had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and you had to move the entire earth. It's someone felt loved, someone felt like they were part of the community. They picked up some product, they got something cool, and now they're enjoying a new hobby just because of kindness. You and your brother were kind, you were inviting, and it opened up a door for this individual to just become part of something new. It's like, yes, that's awesome. I love it. It's so cool.
Yeah, I've never really been a part of that aha moment until that time, and I saw it in the player, and yeah, it was awesome. It was great to be a part of.
It just kind of changes your perspective, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the cards, and then we can go get some dinner, because it's starting to get a little late on both ends. But let's talk about Jump to Lightspeed. We are, again, disclaimer, we're recording in late January, early February. So there are a limited amount of cards, but there's still some cool stuff here. So first of all, let's talk about your favorite leader revealed so far, and why you like them.
Well, it's good that we're doing this now, because I've already chosen the two leaders that I'm going to play with in set 4, and there surely is going to be nothing to change my mind, as I say with a sarcastic voice. But I have always been a complete and utter stan of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Love the books, love everything about Thrawn. Loved him in Rebels. Spent an inordinate amount of time with Thrawn in Spark of Rebellion. Never really went that well, but that's okay.
What are your thoughts on Thrawn and Ahsoka? Yay, nay, maybe?
All in.
Okay.
100% all in. I loved the Ahsoka show. I know that's a controversial take for some, but honestly, like my only complaint with the Ahsoka show was that it did in 8 episodes what it could have done in 3. But that said, all the things it did, I was like, yes, give me more. And they're going to
Rings, The Hobbit, cough.
Was right, exactly.
It was one book.
Yeah, that's it, and they did it. Yeah, Battle of 5 Armies. Get out of here. Anyway, So Grand Admiral Thrawn, I'm very excited about. He looks super playable, super interesting. He's going to be really fun to build around. He's in a great color pairing. I'm still shocked that we have seen 2 Grand Admiral Thrawns and neither of them are in command. That's shocking to me. But
It's
maybe
coming.
I'll
You
get,
know it's coming.
you know it's coming. And if not in leader format, then in unit format, because we still don't have a unit Grand Admiral Thrawn. So knock on wood, maybe that'll have been revealed by the time this podcast comes out, or maybe it won't even be in this set. I have no knowledge of these things. But speaking of command, the other leader that I'm definitely going to be messing around with when Jump to Lightspeed comes out is Admiral Piet, because capital ships.
Shocking, I know.
Yeah, so Piet is a really exciting one for me. I don't know the full scope of what he's going to bring to the table in terms of how many ships I'm going to be able to use. But on the bright side, it looks like both Piet and Thrawn are going to benefit from the presence of Star Destroyers, which makes me a happy camper. So they will definitely be at the top of my playtest list when Jump to Lightspeed drops.
Okay, cool. Let's read. I'm going to read out. Which one do you want to read out first? We can kind of analyze them for a split second on what they do.
So let's talk about Admiral Piet, because Admiral Piet's the easier one.
Yeah.
So Admiral Piet is an Imperial official that deploys on 5. It is command villainy, as previously stated. Admiral Piet is the rare command villainy leader, and he has a action where you can exhaust Admiral Piet on his leader side to play a capital ship unit from your hand, and it costs 1 less. And then if you deploy Admiral Piet on the 5 resource turn or whenever after the fact, you get a 2/7 unit that gives a static ability that each capital ship unit you play costs 2 less. So lots to love there if you're trying to play Star Destroyers like me.
What is the average for a capital ship? It's like 5 to 7 usually, or
I think it's probably a little higher than 5, just because I think the only capital ships that are 5 or less to this point have been Outlaw Corona and Senatorial Corvette. Let me do a quick search here.
So while you're searching, I can talk a little bit about why this card is good. So on the leader side, as an action, you exhaust the card, you get a discount. So that means the casting cost on the top left is reduced by 1. What's really good about Piet as an actual unit is each capital ship unit you play costs 2 less. So as a leader, you can only get a 1 resource cost reduction per turn until you reset the board. The leader unit gives you just a -2 cost infinitely. So if you can play 2, 3, 4, 5 capital ships, you get 2 resource reduction for each card, and that adds up really freaking quick. Other nice thing is a 2/7 body. This boy is not doing any damage, but 7 health is a lot to chunk through. That's like 2, maybe 3 attacks, depending on what's on the board. It's really hard to just single target this character out. And he's in this weird place of his passive ability is really, really good, so you don't want him on the board. But other than that, like he's not going to contribute much in terms of damage. So like, do you expend your really heavy hitting cards into a 2/7, or do you swing into someone's base and put pressure on winning the game next turn? But then your opponent drops a bunch of capital ships that do insane abilities. And it's like, well, my board is gone and they've got 4 giant bodies in the space arena. Maybe I made a mistake here. So he's really hard to nail down, and he's very nasty in like the weirdest of ways.
Yeah, and I appreciate you going into detail on Admiral Piet, because that gave me time to do math, which I'm normally not good at. But as of now, the average cost of a capital ship is 7.6 resources.
So on average, he pushes it down to 5.
On average, when he deploys, he pushes it down to 5, which is his flip turn. So there you go.
Right.
I think Piet is going to suffer from the same thing that Exploit currently suffers from, and that is if your opponent has removal in hand that hits these capital ships.
Yeah.
Vanquish, Fell the Dragon, assuming you're not walking into a Power of the Dark Side, which, Let's just not do that.
Yeah.
The new direct hit event in Vigilance. It's funny how these are all Vigilance events, but anyway.
Cough. It's a scam. It's a thing.
Right.
They knew what they're doing.
If your opponent has the removal to deal with these large capital ships, you're probably getting set back a lot more than you would be in a more traditional deck. You know, again, with exploit, if you're defeating 4 of your units to play your malevolence for 1, then your opponent drops a Fell the Dragon, and now you've lost 5 units in a round. So that part of it is going to be tricky. However, it does seem that, you know, there with the disparity in costs of capital ships, you're not necessarily going to have to go all in on these 8, 9, 10 costers. You're going to be able to play some early. Make sure, you know, your early rounds are spent putting complementary units on the board, perhaps like the new Captain Tarkin, for example, that are able to give you the edge that you need and also present a threat. Because if you have 2 threats on the board and one of them is a capital ship, your opponent's going to have to make a choice. So
you can also ramp in command.
Oh yeah, and there's now a new capital ship that ramps. In the resupply carrier. So that's exciting too, because now you're furthering your own win condition while also adding to your strategy by adding resources.
Yeah. What would you add as a complementary color to Admiral Piet based on your experience?
You know, it's hard for me, despite how great some of these vigilant ships are. It's hard for me to imagine a Piet deck that's having success in anything but aggression. And here's why.
Ooh, okay.
1, Ruthless Raider is a thing. We all know this. But more than Ruthless Raider, I think there's really, like, you'd be hamstringing yourself a lot if you played a deck that was chock full of capital ships and you weren't playing Planetary Bombardment, which is the new aggression legendary in Jump to Lightspeed that says deal 8 indirect to a player for 6 resources, but if you control a capital ship unit, you deal 12 indirect damage instead. Yeah. So if you're skipping out on 12 indirect damage in a deck that has capital ships, you probably need to rethink your strategy a little bit. Now, is that to say Piet's not going to work with Vigilance or double command or even cunning? No, of course not. But I think that Planetary Bombardment is such a home run that's going to be my starting point, and I think that's going to be a lot of people's starting points as well.
Speaking of indirect damage, I think we've seen this special card effect in another game somewhere before. I don't know where though. But
yeah, exactly. I think you might have mentioned it earlier in terms of what game could potentially be influencing Star Wars Unlimited.
Yeah, when I saw indirect damage, I was like, is it going to be exactly what I think? Oh, yep. Shocking. It's such a good mechanic, though. I do like it. It's just funny that the Destiny Unlimited bridge is just getting closer and closer.
Sure. The one thing I will say, though, is I like that they made the change to make it unpreventable.
Yes.
It goes through shields. You can assign it to Lurking TIE Phantom. The unpreventable piece of this is what makes it more effective as a game mechanic than it was in Star Wars Destiny.
Yeah, like we said earlier, I really think they learned what did and didn't work in Destiny, and they transposed it into Star Wars Unlimited, where the effect is really good. The resolution of the damage was really bad. In Unlimited, it's much, much better because you're actually getting value out of the card versus, oh, I'm just going to stick it all into my shield and haha, like, what? No,
exactly.
You can't do that. Okay. So yeah, I really can't wait to see how indirect damage works because it's so much damage. You can't control any of it, but who cares if they have a pool of 20 points and you deal 12? There's not much left. There's 8 points of health somewhere, and that's probably like 2 things, maybe.
Right. And unless you have the new Devastator on the board, which says that you can assign all indirect damage you deal to opponents. So
I saw that.
In theory, that 12 damage just goes straight to the base.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid.
That'll be priority one. Is getting that Devastator off of the board as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you better. What are the stats on that Devastator?
It's 8 for a 9/6.
Oh, jeez, that's nuts. Oh, yeah. If you're not playing capital ships, you better have removal. Otherwise, you are in big poo poo land. Okay.
Yep.
I like it. All right, moving along. Let's talk about the master of disaster himself, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Please tell us, what does this? I love Thrawn. I'm a big Thrawn fan too. So I like, what does he do? This master of just strategy.
Yes. So Grand Admiral Thrawn, whatever his ability was going to be, I was going to play it regardless. But this ability turns out to be pretty good on paper. So Grand Admiral Thrawn is the common vigilance villainy leader. He has an ability on his leader side that says when you use a when defeated ability, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, use that ability again. And then he flips on 6 resources into a 4/7 Imperial official that has the static ability when you use a when defeated ability. You may use that ability again, use this ability only once each round. So Thrawn seems like there are going to be some things that get quickly out of hand when it comes to when defeated with him. And I think it's honestly something that his existence is going to make it so that the design space is very careful throughout the rest of his rotation to make sure that there aren't any absolutely bonkers when defeated abilities.
I can't believe he's printed. B, he's a common. That is just so crazy. For people who don't understand why we're gushing over Grand Admiral Thrawn, usually when a card is designed and printed and it's in your physical hand, the value of the card is primarily based on what it says. So all these cards that say when defeated, do a thing, the balancing of that card, the stats on that card, the casting cost on that card is built around this effect. Grand Admiral Thrawn says you get to do that thing twice, which generally is not built into the design space. People don't look at a card and go, okay, if this happens 2 times, then maybe we should make the stats worse or the casting cost higher or whatever. So Thrawn just gives you value because a card says when defeated, do a thing. And like you said, that's the reason why the design team has to be very cautious, because if there's a card that says, oh, hey, when this is defeated, draw 3 cards, Grand Admiral Thrawn says, draw 6 cards. That's insane. That's absolutely, even if it says draw 2 cards, that's 4 cards. Okay. that's nuts.
Yeah, he's going to be an interesting one because I don't know whether or not your goal with Thrawn is going to be spam as many when defeated cards as possible in your deck and just leave it at that. Yes, you're going to want a lot of them. That is absolutely apparent. But I think the decks that are succeeding right now have found success because they lean into that core mechanic of the leader without sacrificing cards that are just universally good.
Yeah.
For example, if you're not using a force strategy or a rebel strategy in a heroism vigilance deck, doesn't matter, still play Luke Skywalker. That's
always play Luke Skywalker.
Right. So like not sacrificing the cards that are really, really good universally or just in general for the sake of feeding the mechanic, as it were, is going to be a tricky balance to find with him. Because, again, except for his flip turn, you can only use these when defeated abilities once. So if you've got a bunch of these units that are out there, and they're a little bit more understated because they have that when defeated ability baked into their cost, yeah, sure, you can duplicate one, but then all the other ones that are being defeated in that round, they're just being defeated and nothing, and you're only getting that effect one time instead of two, and that may not be enough to put you over the top.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's going to be a fine balance, but I'm excited to exhaustively try to find that balance because there's a world in which you can do some really scary things with him, and I'm here for that.
Well, let's talk about some synergies with the good old Admiral, because I'm looking at this new director Krennic, who I have an unfathomable love for no reason whatsoever. And not only is he a 2-cost shielded unit, which is stupid, but this new director Krennic is it gives you a discount similar to Piet that says the first unit you play each round that has a when defeated ability costs 1 resource less. So you could just play him start of the game. You have a shield on this body, which is awesome. And then the next couple turns, like, you've got toys you can drop, like landing shuttle, which when defeated draws you a card. There, I have to go. Oh, Onyx, Squadron Brute. These are all spoiled cards from Jump to Lightspeed. But like, when defeated, heal 2 damage from a base, or 4 damage if Thrawn's untapped. This, or draw 2 cards off landing shuttle. Why not just crash it into something and I'll just replenish my hand. No big deal.
Yeah, and it's honestly like, this may not even be something that needs to work in a Thrawn deck, right? Like, this is a free Greedo.
Yeah.
This is a free 3/1 unit that has a when defeated effect to deal upwards of 2 more damage, or 4 if you're using it with Thrawn. This is a 2-cost super laser technician. Now that ability doesn't work with Thrawn, but you still get the discount from Krennic, so you can play it for 2, and then you still have extra resources to be able to either mess with your opponents, add another unit, maybe play a card that automatically defeats your super laser technician so you can ramp right away. The possibilities here are going to be really exciting with Director Krennic. I'm a huge Director Krennic fan as well. So I was very excited to see that both Krennic and Thrawn can go together, because that's just a dream come true for me. And so, honestly, like, it was such a great week when Thrawn was revealed, because not only did they reveal Thrawn, who I love, they revealed Krennic, who I love, and then they revealed Chimera, which is not only one of my favorite Star Destroyers, but one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen in my life. And it works perfectly with Grand Admiral Thrawn and Director Krennic as well. So I'm definitely in hog heaven when it comes to these vigilance villainy cards that are being revealed. And I can't wait to get them on the table.
Yeah, so Chimera says, when played, you may use a when defeated ability on another friendly unit, which there's a lot of cool things you can do with that. And when the Chimera is defeated, you create 2 TIE Fighter tokens. If Thrawn is untapped, you make 4. And that's a lot of bodies. Also, it's a 5/6, which, unless you have direct removal, is not going down very quickly in a fight. I do acknowledge there is some direct hatred of vehicles with direct hit, since it just blows up a vehicle unit for 4.
Yep.
But you kind of need that so that these cards don't go completely unchecked. But I agree, it does feel pretty bad. However, if your opponent is playing vehicles or want, you can just blow them off the board, because it's in color, which is nice.
Yeah, there's the balance of how many people really lean into this vehicle synergy versus how many don't is going to be very intriguing when Jump to Lightspeed drops. Because I think the conventional sort of low-hanging fruit wisdom is, well, they're going to be easier to remove. You can just confiscate all these pilot upgrades. It's not going to work. But if they're designing a whole set around it, I have to have faith, based on everything that FFG and the Star Wars Unlimited team has shown us to this point, that they've done so in a way that's not just going to make it dead on arrival. Right? There are even, I understand that in set 3, we're not seeing a lot of exploit, and we're not seeing a lot of coordinate, which are the 2 fundamental mechanics, aside from token units, which we're also not seeing a ton of of the Twilight of the Republic set. I get that, but I think that's more of a byproduct of the meta and people being in a hurry to win things, so they're not as willing to spend the time to innovate versus them just being bad. I don't subscribe to the fact that these mechanics are bad. I just subscribe to the fact that they haven't been fully explored yet. And I think that even if we end up in a situation where people don't really embrace the space heavy or the pilot heavy environment, that's not to say it'll be that way forever. And so I'm really excited to see how that balance plays out when Jump to Lightspeed releases.
I get the feeling based on looking at some of these cards that this set is going to push not only the current metagame, but just like player skill, because pilots are so good, but you don't want to commit a pilot to something that's about to get removed.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of find that counterbalance of playing around removal, getting it out of your opponent's hand, and then you drop a pilot on something insane, or you drop a pilot on something insane, and then you flood the board with a bunch of like mid-tier bodies, and now your opponent's just staring down a gun barrel. It's like, well, do I take out the piloted ship, or do I remove this thing that's dealing indirect damage, or like, what do I do? Because there's so many different there's threats. There's a lot of threats on the board, and just a lot of cards are just low to the ground. Like Director Krennic's just such a weird card because it's it's a 2/2 uncommon with a shield and a discount. It's so good. It's a good card. It's just a good card.
Right. Chimera also uncommon. Like, didn't think I'd be seeing that.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to finding the sweet spot of, if you're playing pilots, cool, how many pilots are you playing? Because what you don't want to do is get your hand clogged up with pilots and no vehicles to play them on.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that Exploit got, or continues to get tripped up with, is the fact that, if you don't have anything to exploit, then all of a sudden your hand has all these big units you can't play. Or, as previously mentioned, if you do get the chance to play it and it just gets immediately removed, now you've set yourself back as opposed to having a board state to begin with. So there's definitely a balance to be found versus how many pilots versus how many vehicles, or even if you're playing a deck that's not focused on pilots, but you still want to mix in some of these really good ones like Chewbacca, like IG-88, right? Mixing
Shocking
in,
you get to say that out loud.
right. Well, they definitely said in the live stream where they revealed IG-88, hey, this is the good IG-88. Sort of
Which
alluding,
infers there's a bad one.
right. Yeah, and I think that, again, it all comes back to balance, because these pilots can also be ground units. So if you're getting overwhelmed on the ground, maybe you need to put one of these pilots in the ground as opposed to in space. But a lot of them have either vanilla text or something that's not as good as if you were to put it on a ship. Right. So, finding that give and take is going to be really key.
What do you think the ratio is if you're deck building, like, 20% pilots, 40% ships? Like, what are you feeling? Just,
let's say for the sake of argument that you want to play a deck that is focused on piloting, right? Okay. Let's just say that. I don't think you put a single ground unit in your deck unless it's directly related to pilots.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you why that is. Because all of your pilots that can go on ships can also go to the ground, like I just said. So in a pinch, those are your ground units. So if you're not playing something like a Captain Tarkin, which gives your friendly vehicles +1/+0 and overwhelm, if you're not playing something like Wedge Antilles from set 1 that gives all your vehicles +1/+1 and ambush, if you're not playing something that prevents your opponent from doing something like a Sentinel, for example, in the ground arena, then you shouldn't have the need to play any ground units. If you're, I'll add one caveat to that, because I think there's some of these that are important.
Luke Skywalker.
Well, right, and that's what I was going to say. Is if your ground units can affect units from any part of the battlefield. Like if it can cross pollinate into the space arena, like a Luke, like a Palpatine from set 1, like a Dooku from set 1, just the ability to either do damage or defeat other non-ground units, feel free to mix those in. But if you're going all in on piloting, then your deck should have enough space units for your pilots to pilot and enough pilots to where you're comfortable either adding them to your ships or mixing them in on the ground to the point where they can be a stopgap if needed. Okay. So let's throw a hypothetical out there. I have not messed around at all with piloting decks, but if you're going right now in a normal set 3 constructed deck in the Premier format, you're probably doing something, unless you're Django Tarkin Town, you're probably doing something along the lines of 25 ground units and 10 to 12 space units. So that's, let's call it 36 units. If you're focused on entirely on piloting, that 36 unit benchmark, in my opinion, in my uninformed opinion, probably turns into 20 pilots and 16 vehicles.
Okay.
Because you have some spares if your upgrades get removed, and you have some spares if you need to put some in the ground arena. Okay. You could probably go a little bit further and do 22 and 14. Again, just to have a little bit more protection. But I don't think you go 18 and 18 and split it right down the middle. I don't think you do that.
Okay. Makes sense. And usually ground units are where you're going to get overwhelmed anyways, especially if you're playing against aggro. It's going to be a lot of little bodies on the floor, so you don't want to go completely unchecked.
Right.
Okay. I like where your head's at. I like where you're thinking. Okay, last question, and then we're going to scoot out of here.
That sounds great.
This is a fun one because I've seen so many debates about this. The 35 health base, Colossus.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
What are your thoughts? Share with us what you think, what you like, what you don't like. What are your thoughts?
You're not often going to catch me saying something that could be perceived as negative about Star Wars Unlimited because I like it so much.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily think that this is going to be a controversial or an overtly negative take per se.
Mm.
But I don't think it's enough of a trade-off for 5 health.
Okay.
I don't think one less card in your starting hand moves the needle 5 health worth. If this was a 32 health base, I'd be a lot more comfortable with it. But if you're Emperor Palpatine, or if you're a blue heroism deck that runs things like Yoda and Obi-Wan and things like that, I don't think this is going to set you back that far. Going from 5 to or from 6 to 5 one time. Right?
Right? Yeah, one starting. For those who don't know, it's a 35 health base that says draw 1 less card from your starting hand. So you get 5 cards instead of 6. Ooh.
If this was draw 1 less card, or I take that back. If this was your maximum hand size is decreased by 1, I'd feel a lot better about it.
Okay.
Now, they may I have full confidence that they probably tested that and found it to be too oppressive, and that's why they went with this version. So, feel free to yell at me in the comments or whatever for not knowing what the heck I'm talking about, and that's fine. But in Vigilance specifically, it can be so difficult just to get to 30. And now you're telling me that I have to get to 35 at the price of 1 card throughout the entire game? That's wild. Now, the positive angle that we're going to spin this here again, because we've only seen one rare base revealed at this time in late January, early February. If this is the benchmark for rare bases, we're going to have some sweet rare bases in the other three colors. Because if you're a control player or if you're a vigilance player, you're jumping for joy at Colossus.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This has just become your new favorite base if you're running control in any form. And for those people, cool, have at it. Do your thing. Make the Sabines of the world adjust to you. Because what do we always hear, right, about things like Palpatine or things like heavy control? You know,
just wait one more turn.
Right, you just lose to Sabine because it out aggroes you. With 35 health, that may not be the case.
Yeah, I like where you're going with this. So, speculation. Do you think the base health is so high because in this set specifically, the indirect damage is also very high?
Well, the indirect damage, the value of that indirect damage is largely going to be determined by how much that mechanic is embraced. Because if it is heavily embraced, then you're not worried as much about the 35 health bases as you are about the super popular 25 health bases. Because if all of a sudden this indirect damage makes it so much easier to burn down your opponent's base at 30, then all of a sudden Tarkin Town and Energy Conversion Lab become much more of a liability than they have been up to this point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I look at it from that lens more than I look at it from the 35 health. Because I don't think if you're, again, I keep spinning this in the lens of a control player. If you're a control player, I don't think you're worried about indirect damage if you have a 35 health base. I think you're worried about direct burn to your base, and that's why you're taking the 35.
Yeah.
If you are a low to the ground aggro deck that doesn't have a lot of HP on the board at one given time, then you're really worried about indirect damage because at some point you run out of places to assign that damage. And now you've got 10 less health than some other bases, and it's a lot easier for that indirect damage to actually matter.
Yeah. And that's my curiosity, since obviously FFG, they've play tested, they've listened to the community. So the fact that we have low health bases doing so well in tournaments, and now we're getting a much bigger base with, I know 5 health may not sound like a lot, but it's a lot. But there's also that indirect damage that we really didn't have time to get into, but traditionally indirect damage, you get more damage per cost of the card. So whatever metric you want to parse, you pay less in resources, you get more damage, but the opponent controls where it goes. However, like you were saying, usually aggro decks, their health on an average card is like what, 2 to 5, like 2 to 4.
I would say somewhere in the 2 to 6 range is probably the sweet spot, because you have to think of things like Poe and Wrecker. Whereas if you're in a control environment or even mid range, you're getting units with 7, 8, 9 health.
Yeah, so if you pop off 2 effects that deal, like you said, you could do 12 indirect damage. That's a lot of dead stuff, and then whatever's not dead, all that damage goes directly in your base. Well, you're already at -5 health. That adds up quickly, and that's what makes me interested. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with the meta because it's too early to guess, but it's just fascinating that we've seen lower health bases do so well. We're now seeing a healthier base that probably will do well because control players are almost always like one turn behind from making a huge impact. And that 5 health is probably that turn that they need. So I'm really excited to see where our control decks turn out. But indirect damage feels on paper that it's going to make an impact. I don't think it's just dead in the water because you're right. Exploit, all these other keywords have just kind of been like, oh, that's cool. Anyways, moving
Right.
on.
Right. And I think the best illustration we've seen so far about how a unit is costed as it relates to indirect damage is the tie bomber. If I were to say to you, "Hey, I'm gonna have you pay 2 resources, and you're gonna get a 3/4 unit in space," you would tell me that that's broken, based on the metrics of how we've seen space units the first 3 sets.
Uh-huh.
But if I were to tell you, okay, I'm gonna give you 2 resources, and you're gonna get a 3/4 unit in space, but every time that unit attacks, you get to assign where that 3 damage goes, and every time that unit defends, it doesn't do any damage back.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that unit seems a lot more competitively balanced than if it was just a 2/3/4.
Right. TIE Bomber, I think, is a great target for piloting.
Yes.
Just because you're right, it doesn't do any damage on the clapback. But if there's a pilot there, they definitely do. And there's some pretty spicy pilots. Also, TIE Bomber is villainy only, so it can go into any villainy deck. So any pilots in your, Thrawn or Piet deck or whatever, you just slap them on the bomber because they don't care. It's going to be in whatever villain deck you want. And a 0/4 that swings for 3 indirect, very scary. But with a pilot, oh Lord, what things could you do? What horrible things could you do to people?
But again, it's that balance, right? Because if you drop a tie bomber on round 1, and then you're looking for the insurmountable lead early,
Yeah.
you spend your resources to drop a pilot on your tie bomber round 2. Now all of a sudden you've left yourself open to single unit removal, and you've got 2 rounds of paying your resources with nothing to show for it.
Yep.
Because Power of the Dark Side's a real thing.
Oh yeah, the single target removal just went up in spades. Like, oh man, all the single target removal, and thank God they're in like uncommon or lower. It would be horrid if those were all like rares, and now it's like cool single target removals, $5 minimum.
Yeah.
But uncommons very very easy to get, super obtainable. Thank you, FFG.
Yeah, I think single target removal is it's not going anywhere. It's already great. It's going to continue to get great. But then, the balance of that, right, is area effect damage with something like Overwhelming Barrage. Because if you're in one arena and your opponent's in the other, and we're going to see that a lot more in set 4 than I think we've seen in all the other 3 sets combined, then you're going to need to find ways to affect that other arena with the cards you have on the table.
Yeah.
And, a way to do that is with Overwhelming Barrage, is with Luke Skywalker, Emperor Palpatine. Things like that can say, hey, I'm furthering my own strategy, which at this point happens to be ground-based, but I'm still able to take you out in space. Or vice versa. If you have one big capital ship and your opponent has 3 ground units because it's late in the game, Overwhelming Barrage or something along those lines, indirect damage, for example, could help you even those odds.
Absolutely. And I think it also adds another layer of complexity, like you were talking about, where turn 1, play TIE Bomber. Turn 2, do I pilot it and then my opponent removes it? Do I commit all the way in and put some, do you put pressure on the board? Do you kind of balance your arenas out where it's like, okay, the TIE Bomber's in space, I'm going to play a ground unit. Do you play an action? Do you use a spell or ability? Like, the game is already extremely complex with decision trees based on the Yugo Igo system, and now with piloting it's even more interesting because you have to take risks, and I think that's fun because sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't. But it's also nice that some ways, depending on how you build your deck, you can force your opponent to use their removal by creating this lightning rod of a TIE Bomber and a really good pilot. You have to respond to it. And if you don't, you lose the game, which now means I can play other things like another TIE Bomber, or I can play something into the ground arena. And, you have to kill that TIE bomber. You absolutely have to stop that. So it kind of gives you a little bit of mobility to spread out and then, play around other things, put some more pressure on the opponent. It gives you flexibility, and I like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it was, I don't remember where I saw it, but one of the developers, to your point, used that as an example in the sense that these cards are essentially an exercise in making your opponent have an answer. Like, sure, confiscate can get rid of a leader on a ship, but you know what? At some point, you've got to make your opponent have it. You have to.
Yeah.
So, because at the end of the day, if you sit there and dirtle, then you're going to get outraced, and that's not what you want either. Like, the successful deck is not just going to rely on one threat. It's going to rely on, if my threat is dealt with, here's another threat. Deal with that now.
Yeah, that's a term a lot of pro players use in Magic is, show me. Do you have it? You got it? Oh, you don't? Cool. Like, I know a lot of newer people, or just people in general. I should probably clarify. It is not uncommon for people to be afraid of removal, because nobody, no sane person I know, plays a card and goes, cool, I'm ready and excited to have this card strip off of the field. You want that card to present value. You want that card to do something. And then if it gets removed, like, okay, it doesn't feel super bad, but you don't want to play a card and build it up, and then your opponent, plays direct hit. It's like, oh, my vehicle is gone with my pilot and my droid. Oh, bummer. But you're still playing a base race. You need to deal damage and knock your opponent out. So you want to spread your resources across multiple things to create multiple threats, but you also want to force your opponent to expend their resources and their cards, because at the end of the day, it's still a card game. And if your opponent is playing from behind where you've got 4 bodies on the field and they've only got 2 cards in hand, at the worst, they can only get rid of 2 things. They probably can't get rid of 2 things, but that's like the most horrendous potential option of anything. Versus if they don't have any removal, you get 4 swings and you're unchecked.
Right.
So you have to play with a little bit of risk aversion and go, you know what? If they kill it, they kill it. If they don't kill it, I'm going to deal 6 damage to their base, and I'm going to get to exhaust a unit. Let's go for broke.
Right.
And I think you're right. The designers and the developers are creating new tools for our toolbox to have these little interactions that create the snowball effect of, okay, I'm going to play a TIE bomber. Not really scary. Okay, now I'm going to put the Mandalorian on it. That's a lot worse. Now you're swinging
significantly.
Okay, and now you pass your action. It's like, do you have removal? And if your opponent does not immediately tap whatever like 4 for direct hit, whatever, if they don't immediately start exhausting resources, they don't have it, and you're going to get to have your way and do whatever you want, because no sane person would just sit there and think about it. It's like, no, that TIE bomber with the Mandalorian has to go. There's no way you can let that live. So I love it, because now there's even more player interactivity. There's more complexity. I don't think it's like necessarily harder, but there's more options for both the offense and the defense, which leads to really good games. It's fun when you have to make impactful choices. I don't think it's fun when the game plays itself. I really don't.
I agree completely.
So last question before we get on out of here. Is there a favorite card you've seen so far in the current spoiled cards? Is there anything we haven't talked about that you're just like, this card is going to be fun to either collect it, play it, test with it? There's so many different aspects you enjoy of Star Wars Unlimited. So I'd love to hear if there's a winner chicken dinner so far that you've seen.
Well, I've talked at length about all my lovely and beautiful Star Destroyers, so I will spare you the added piling on for that.
Okay.
A card I really like, and it's one of the first ones that they showed, because I've played so much Darth Vader, and I wish this was a Spark of Rebellion card, but it wasn't. That's fine. Is No Disintegrations. The idea that for 3 resources you can take any unit to within 1 HP of its total life. Is really good. And obviously the synergy there with Vader is then you can turn around and spend the resource to ping off that last little bit of damage, or use any of the other great cards that deal with, hey, remaining HP left, it has to be at a certain threshold or less. You know, the Devastating Gunship comes to mind, Vigilance comes to mind, Count Dooku, as I mentioned previously, comes to mind. Indirect Damage is going to love that card. I really think this No Disintegrations card is going to have, despite it not being actual removal, is going to have a lot of uses outside of trying to remove units, in the sense that, like, yeah, it's not going to get it off the table, but it is going to make it a lot easier for you to get it off the table, to the point where even if there's a card that lets your opponent, or that gives one of your opponent's units -1/-1, something like a Rune Hacko, right? Yeah. All of a sudden, that No Disintegrations has turned into pseudo removal. So I think the design of that card is super cool, and I'm excited to see what decks it'll fit into, or if I just drop it in a new and improved version of Darth Vader and go to town.
Yeah, it's also very thematic. He didn't quite kill you, but he got you like within an inch of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Classic Boba Fett. Oh man, great card. Yeah, I like your assessment. I like the card a lot. It's very interesting because it just slots into so many things. It's not bad at all.
No, I think it'll have some play.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get on out of here. Again, why don't you tell everybody who you are, tell them where they can find you, and just plug all of your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm mostly active on what is currently X. Who knows what it'll be in a month? I haven't made the migration. I haven't made the migration over to Blue Sky yet. That's still TBD. But so you can find our channel over there at Roll on SWD. A little harken back to the Destiny days. On YouTube, we are at Roll on Gaming, and you'll see on any of those videos, there's a link to Deploy Your Leader Gaming, where you can find our articles. And aside from that, I just want to say thank you for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to have a fun conversation and, plug our channel a little bit. And, it's a great game, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it. So, appreciate the conversation.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have links in the show notes and on our social media accounts, so everyone can check out all of your cool stuff. But I'm excited about this set. It looks really fun. That's the biggest thing that draws me into any card game, is how fun it is. I don't care if it's mechanically sound. I don't care if it's super cool and sexy. If it's not fun, I'm not interested.
It's generally speaking with me. If it's Star Wars, it's gonna be fun. So I'm fully leaned into it, and I'm ready for Set 4 to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. We will absolutely have to get you back on later in the year to talk about, man, there's a lot of cool things. Maybe we'll get you on after Worlds. That's going to be a really fun experience. Are you going to Worlds? Are you playing on that?
I will be there in whatever capacity I can possibly be there.
Okay, cool. Very, very cool. All right. Well, that is the end of the show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, check out Roll On Gaming. And that's the end of the show. This has been fun. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate your time. So everybody have a wonderful evening. And remember to play games and have fun.